You drift quietly, not on air or ocean, but through the ink-dark silence of space. It is still here, still in a way the Earth never is. The noise of wind, the ticking of clocks, the rustle of leaves, all of that is gone. Out here, there is only the slow ballet of ancient stones. They do not twirl like ballerinas. They glide, sometimes tumbling, sometimes frozen mid-spin like a dream. These are asteroids, broken pieces of something older than memory, untouched by history, pure in their silence. Some are jagged like splinters, others smooth as river stones, polished not by water, but by time, and they are everywhere. You are floating past one now. It is the size of a mountain, yet it barely seems to move. Covered in pitted craters and silver scars, it carries no name, but it carries a story. Each of these rocks is a memory of the solar system's childhood debris, left over from the making of planets, the fallout of collisions, the stillbirths of worlds that almost... They were never melted into spheres, or blessed with gravity's tight hug. They remained outsiders, wanderers. In that, perhaps, you recognize something familiar. The asteroid beneath you is mostly metal, iron and nickel, cold and clean. It shines faintly, reflecting the faraway sun like a forgotten coin at the bottom of a well. There are rarer metals hidden inside too: gold, platinum, even iridium, which on Earth lies buried under miles of crust. Here, though, in this drifting archive of time, it lies just beneath the dust. Why do we look at these ancient stones with such longing? Is it their silence, their purity, or is it because they feel like keys to something lost? You remember hearing about how one asteroid might hold enough metal to make every human on Earth a billionaire. But out here, that seems silly. Out here, wealth feels like a concept made of paper. Out here, these rocks are not treasure chests. They are fossils, they are time capsules. They are the bones of a universe still growing into itself. You close your eyes and drift closer. Imagine touching one. Your hand, gloved, presses gently into the dust. It clings to your fingers like ancient ash. You brush aside a layer and reveal a patina streak of graphite, a shard of olivine. Earthly names for alien minerals. These aren't just rocks, they are the language of the cosmos, spoken slowly and without sound. Back home, we chip away at the ground to find meaning. Out here, meaning floats freely, waiting only for your gaze. You wonder if you spent long enough watching. Could you read their stories? Could you trace the jagged edges of a fracture and know the violence of its birth? Could you see the quiet places and feel the years they waited, untouched? These rocks have seen things. They have watched stars explode in the distance, their light creeping toward them across the void. They have passed by planets, been pulled and released by gravity's invisible fingers. Some have even kissed the edges of Earth's atmosphere, carving fire into the sky before slipping away. Once a great asteroid ended the reign of dinosaurs. A single stone, perhaps not so different from the one before you now, changed the course of life forever. From silence, it brought a new beginning, a violent lullaby that ended one dream and began another. Still, they are not dangerous by nature. They are indifferent. They follow paths etched long ago by physics and momentum, like boats drifting on a current we cannot see. It is only when we cross their path, or they cross ours, that they remind us how small and soft we are. Yet we are drawn to them. Our machines chase them. Our telescopes name them. Our poets write of their cold beauty. And now, here you are, floating beside one, the echo of all those longings folded into your breath. There is something humbling about being so close to something so old and yet so unchanged. Earth evolves, reshapes, heals and crumbles, but these stones resist. They do not grow forests or form rivers. They do not erode or bloom. They remain, scarred perhaps, but steady. A small one passes nearby, no bigger than a house. It spins with unexpected speed, wobbling like a forgotten toy. You follow it with your gaze, amused. Each one of these has its own personality, its own history. Some are porous and dark, others dense and bright. Some whisper of icy origins, others of molten birth, and yet they all share one thing: loneliness. In the silence you feel it, not sadness, but a kind of noble solitude, a peace that comes not from isolation, but from freedom. These stones answer to no one. They belong to no orbit unless borrowed. Their allegiance is to motion alone. You float in that same motion, weightless and slow. The stars blink behind you. Time stretches here, not in hours or days, but in orbits and drift. Somewhere deep inside this asteroid, there might be water, trapped in minerals, hidden in pockets, waiting. And maybe, just maybe, that water once danced in the heart of a comet, or trickled through a newborn solar system. Water that someday we might drink again. It's a poetic thought that in mining asteroids we're not just extracting materials, but memories. That the metals we might one day melt down for circuits and ships were once stardust, part of a greater whole. That our future might be built from pieces of the past. But tonight you don't mine, you only drift. The asteroid turns slightly, revealing a side coated in shadows. You imagine setting foot there, pressing your boot into untouched dust, leaving the first mark. The silence would be complete. The stars overhead would not blink, and beneath your feet, time itself would sleep. You hover a while longer, tracing every ridge and groove with your eyes, letting your breath slow, letting your mind soften. Then gently you begin to float away. The rock does not follow. It continues its quiet spin, unconcerned. Another will pass it in a few thousand years, maybe, or maybe not. You move on not because it is finished, but because there is more to feel. Ahead, something shimmers, not a rock this time, but a speck of ice, a comet perhaps, glimmering in the dark, trailing a promise behind it. And you begin to wonder not what it is, but where it's going. You lie still beneath a sky, so deep, it feels like it might swallow sound. Somewhere, far beyond that dome of stars, ancient rocks drift. But before your thoughts travel outward, they turn gently inward toward Earth, toward the dreamers who first looked up and wondered, could the sky give us more than beauty? The mining dream did not begin in space. It began in silence, in the space between curiosity and necessity, in dusty classrooms, in smoky labs, in the minds of scientists who traced orbits on chalkboards, and storytellers who imagined machines on moons before a single human had stepped beyond the clouds. You picture them scribbling notes by lamplight, sketching spacecraft with graphite-stained fingers. Some drew blueprints, others wrote novels, but all of them shared a vision of humans extending their reach beyond Earth, not just to explore but to build, to gather, to survive. Mining in its earliest spacebound form was not about riches, it was about resilience. The Earth, after all, is finite. Metals lie deep, fuels run dry. As the population grew, so did the question what happens when our home no longer gives. And so, the gaze turned upward. The moon was first, cold, grey, familiar. We left footprints there, but we also brought drills. Early lunar missions imagined extracting helium-3, a rare isotope that could power fusion reactors on Earth. It was a distant hope, but it sparked the mind. What if the moon wasn't just a rock in the sky? What if it was a partner? Later, our eyes turned to asteroids, those drifting relics of planetary formation. They held promise, metals in higher concentrations than any mine on Earth. Some believed a single asteroid could supply humanity's platinum needs for centuries. Others dreamed of harvesting water from space rocks and turning it into fuel. They imagined refueling stations floating like lighthouses between worlds. The dream grew. In the silence of space agencies and the hum of private ventures, the idea of space mining took root. Missions were proposed, cancelled, reimagined. Concepts became prototypes. Prototypes became patents. Little by little, the blueprint of the mining dream was etched into the future. You picture robotic explorers, delicate arms extended over jagged surfaces, sensors blinking in rhythm with data streams. You see astronauts hovering in orbit, guiding drones from the safety of pressurized habitats. You imagine conveyor belts floating in zero gravity, carrying dust that once orbited the sun when Earth was still molten. And yet, this is not fiction anymore. Private companies now study asteroids with keen interest. Telescopes on Earth track their movements with the precision of a heartbeat. Spacecraft are being designed to land, drill, scoop, and return. Engineers speak not in years, but in missions. Investors place bets on futures mined from the void. Still, it all began with a dream. Back in the 20th century, space mining was the stuff of pulp novels and wide-eyed wonder. Writers like Asimov and Clarke filled pages with moon quarries and Martian machinery. They saw not just technology but philosophy. They asked, what does it mean to take from the stars? What is the moral weight of mining beyond Earth? Because every dream comes with questions. Will we treat asteroids as we treated mountains? Will we extract until they are hollow and gone? Or will space mining offer a second chance, a place to apply the lessons we failed to learn on Earth? You float in this thought as if in orbit. The Earth below, the asteroids above, and in between the fragile bridge of human intent. We are clever, yes. But are we wise? In the calm of night, you can almost hear the echo of the first metal tool striking stone. That rhythm carried us through centuries, stone to bronze, bronze to iron, iron to silicon. Each age born from the earth beneath our feet. Now, we ask the sky for the next chapter. You remember reading about meteorites, fragments of asteroids that fell to Earth uninvited. Some contained iron, others rare minerals. For centuries they were revered, feared, studied. Ancient cultures saw them as gifts from the gods. Scientists saw them as keys to the cosmos. They are proof that the materials we seek are already falling to us. We just have to learn to reach instead of wait. And reaching we are. In quiet labs, engineers design harpoons that can anchor to spinning rocks. In simulation chambers, they test drills that can bite into microgravity terrain. In data centers, algorithms predict which asteroids are rich, which are near, which are worth the chase. It's no longer a question of if. Now, it's when, and more softly, how. How will we touch these celestial bodies with care? How will we decide who owns what? Will a mining rig on an asteroid be a flag of conquest or a symbol of collaboration? The dream is still being written. Somewhere in a classroom, a child reads a comic book about asteroid miners, heroes floating among stars, wearing helmets, wielding science. That child may one day walk on a rock that orbits nothing but the sun, may one day look down at their feet and think, this all began as a whisper like the one you hear now, in the back of your thoughts. A gentle pulse of curiosity. The birth of the mining dream was not loud, it did not arrive with trumpets, it was quiet. A soft idea that grew in the minds of many engineers, artists, physicists, poets, the idea that the sky is not empty, that it holds more than stars, that it might feed us, fuel us, remind us who we are, because we have always been seekers. From the first cave to the final launch pad, we have asked what's beyond that ridge. What lies across that ocean? What waits behind that veil of night? Mining in space is just the next verse in that long wandering song. You breathe slowly, allowing the vision to dissolve like mist. The Earth, the telescopes, the stories, they all fade into the stillness. What remains is the dream, like a distant light. You reach for it not to take, but to understand. And just beyond that reach, a new image begins to form, not of blueprints, but of stone, of the rocks themselves, waiting, watching, unmoved. Last lines, in the silence between dreams and destinations, you feel the quiet pull of something more ancient than thought. A drifting presence not yet touched by hands or hope, and so begins your journey into the stones themselves. You float in the soft hush of space, and your mind, gentle as a tide, begins to turn inward toward the heart of stone. An asteroid passes beneath you, dark against the velvet stars. It does not shine, not brightly. It isn't trying to dazzle. It simply is a lumpy, irregular monument to an ancient, unfinished world. And yet, inside its silent shell lies something astonishing. Not empty, not dead, but full. You close your eyes and drift downward through its crust. slowly as though descending through memory. First you imagine the dust fine, grey, clinging like thoughts that won't quite let go. Then tiny fragments like gravel, broken but untouched for billions of years. They coat the surface, kicked up by micro-impacts, rearranged by nothing but inertia and time. Deeper now you begin to sense something denser. Metallic veins run through the stone like forgotten rivers. You follow them inward until you feel the weight of elements gathering beneath you. Iron, cold and raw, not the kind you hammer into shape or cast into tools. This iron is primal, born from collapsing stars, gathered in the furnace of a young solar system, left behind when planets formed and forgot. Nickel follows, laced through iron like threads of quiet resilience. Together they make up most of this rock's core, a steady heartbeat, pulsing, not with warmth, but with memory. This is no ordinary stone. This is a relic. You pause here, floating inside your imagining, letting the metals whisper their long, slow tale. They tell you of supernovas, their violent brilliance, their silence afterward, of how atoms were flung into the void, scattered like seeds in a black garden. Some of those atoms became stars again. Others found each other, cooled, condensed, and became this, a drifting womb of metal. You drift farther still, and now your thoughts turn precious. Platinum, a rare sheen hiding deep within, so scarce on Earth that we trade it with reverence, use it to build circuits, crowns, catalysts. Here, though, it waits in silence, undisturbed, unrefined. Not wealth, not yet, just potential. The potential to fuel futures, to bridge planets, to light engines with chemical grace. You see it glint, just faintly, in the crevices of this mind-made cavern. Then there is gold, not as treasure, not as symbol. Here gold as an ancient metal that cooled in the arms of dying stars, bound with iron and left adrift. On Earth, it's torn from mountains. Here it floats in stone like stardust, waiting to be remembered. You feel the deep poetry of it, the idea that what we chase on Earth might exist freely, waiting in the vastness above. Then come the rarer guests, iridium, osmium, ruthenium, names that feel like spells. They do not gleam, they do not announce themselves, but they are powerful. On Earth they are used to shape futures, clean fuel, powerful magnets, tools that survive the heat of fire. And here they are, hiding in a rock that most will never see. You breathe slower now. The rhythm of the elements has quieted your thoughts. These asteroids, some are carbonaceous, rich in organic compounds. They hold the ingredients for life's raw beginnings. Others are metallic, heavy with iron and secrets. Some are rubble piles, loosely bound, fragile like memory itself. You understand now that what's in an asteroid is not just metal, it is history, it is potential, it is proof. Proof that the universe is not random, it is rhythmic, that the same elements that flow through your blood, iron, magnesium, carbon, also drift through the stars. You are not just looking at rock, you are looking at a version of yourself, forged in deeper time. And as your thoughts spiral around these truths, you remember something else. Earth once had these metals too, abundant, undisturbed, but its heat pulled them inward. During its fiery youth, molten iron sank to the core, dragging heavier elements with it. That's why gold is rare, why platinum must be mined with such care. Because most of it sank beyond reach, but in space, some of it stayed near the surface, locked in asteroids that never melted, never separated. They are time capsules of chemistry, holding what Earth lost. You wonder, what if Earth's heart could be cracked open? What if we could see what lies hidden in its depths? Would it look like this? In the quiet, you smile. Because space has done that work for us. These asteroids are pieces of planet cores that never happened, and in studying them, in one day mining them, we reach not only forward, but inward, toward understanding, toward origin. Somewhere behind your eyes, a comet passes. You do not chase it yet. Instead, you stay with the stone. Imagine a future. A ship lands here, not loudly, not in conquest, but in curiosity. Robotic arms extend, scan, extract samples, microscopes unfold like flowers in zero gravity. Humanity's fingerprints gently press against the untouched, not to dominate, but to know. And perhaps that is the secret of the metals, not their value, but their meaning. Platinum in a processor, nickel in a battery, iridium in a reactor. They are not just resources, they are invitations. Invitations to build, to reach, to remember. You open your eyes, returning to the surface of the thought. The asteroid has turned beneath you. A crater comes into view, filled with darkness. You imagine it as a bowl that once caught starlight. Now it holds shadow and mystery. You understand now what's inside an asteroid. Not just metal, but rhythm, memory, echo. The same things inside you. You let yourself drift again, this time backward, away from the asteroid, back toward the gentle vastness. And in that distance the rock becomes small again. But its significance doesn't fade. If anything, it grows. Because now you know what it carries. It is not a treasure chest. It is a mirror. The stars blink faintly above you, like thoughts just beginning to form. And in the stillness of this cosmic silence, something stirs, not organic, not breathing, yet very much alive. A glint of movement on a shadowed rock, a flicker of motion across a cratered ridge. There, on the surface of an asteroid, you see them, tiny engineers, born not of bone but of wire and will. They do not hum, they do not speak, yet their language is unmistakable. Precision, 1 inch forward on jointed legs, no larger than a suitcase. Its limbs adjust delicately with each shifting gravity, as if it were bowing to the asteroid's subtle spin. Another floats gently beside it, its frame shining like brushed aluminum, adjusting small thrusters to stabilize its position. It is a dance, hurried, unchoreographed by instinct, but elegant in its programming. You watch as a robotic arm unfolds. Almost shyly, it brushes dust aside with the care of a monk sweeping temple steps. A drill descends, pausing as if to ask permission, then spins, not violently, but rhythmically. Dust spirals up like ancient incense into the void. These are not the giant machines of Earth, no belching engines, no screeching steel. These are feather-light explorers, built for gentleness, for grace in gravity's absence. Each one was crafted with intent. Solar panels unfold like origami wings, sipping sunlight in measured gulps. Data pulses through fibers, no thicker than hair. Every sensor, every motor, every line of code carries the dream of a distant planet. They are children of Earth, but they work for the stars, and though they have no eyes, they see. Though they have no ears, they listen. Their sensors touch the surface of stone and read its story: temperature, density, magnetism, composition. In seconds, they know more than a human could in hours. Yet they remain still, respectful. These are not conquerors, they are caretakers. You imagine the minds that built them, engineers who shaped their limbs in laboratories, coders who taught them how to balance on uneven rock, dreamers who gave them names, sometimes clinical, sometimes affectionate. Each machine represents hundreds of hands, thousands of hours, millions of moments stitched together into possibility. And now here they are, alone, but not lonely. Silent but never deaf. They talk constantly each other, to satellites, to the stars themselves. Low-frequency whispers bounce across space, updates and requests sent in bursts of binary light. A single line of code can mean the difference between hovering and tumbling, between success and silence. One small miner pauses, it raises its head, or what would be its head, and scans the horizon. A decision is made, it turns, its treads adjust to the rocky slope beneath it. Another follows, tethered invisibly, by shared mission, not rope. They are self-correcting, self-updating. When a solar flare disrupts their path, they recalculate. When microgravity nudges them off balance, they compensate. They learn not with emotion, but with elegance. You marvel at their resilience. There is no oxygen here, No rescue plan, no warm hand to reset a system or clear the dust from a lens. And yet they go on. Tireless, purposeful, moving with the same faith that launched them, not faith in gods or luck, but in math, in trajectory, in design. Occasionally, they pause not because they're tired, but because the universe demands precision. A spectrometer flickers, a sample is tested. The data is transmitted back to Earth, traveling across the void in invisible waves. You imagine a team of humans, far away, sitting in a room glowing with screens. They wait, not with breath held, but with focus honed. A new image appears, a rock fragment, rich in nickel. A cheer goes up, not loud, but deep. Not celebration, but confirmation. The dream works, and it all begins here, with these tiny engineers. One begins to climb a vertical outcrop, its magnetic feet clicking faintly against the metallic surface. Each movement is calculated, each angle adjusted in real time. It plants a marker, a beacon no larger than a pebble. The others register it instantly. That's where the core sample will be taken. The ballet continues. You float closer, watching the choreography unfold. Arms extend, lasers measure, scoops retrieve grains of history. A capsule opens like a metallic flower, and the findings are stored with reverence, not because the dust is sacred, but because what it contains is. This asteroid may one day become part of a ship's hull, or the power source for a lunar base, or the fuel for a journey beyond Mars, and all of it begins with this simple machines, gathering pieces of the future with hands of steel and hearts of light. You feel a strange warmth, not because the scene is beautiful, though it is, but because it is so deeply human, despite the absence of humans. These robots are not alive in the way we understand, but they carry something very much alive: intention, imagination, hope. They were built to go where we cannot yet, to test the ground before we arrive, to turn the chaos of space into the beginning of structure. Tiny engineers, grand dreams. The dance slows. A sample pod is sealed. A message is beamed. The robots retreat to their perch, solar panels angled toward the distant sun. They wait, charging, thinking, or something like it. Their code loops, their systems sleep, but their mission hums quietly, always. You take one last look, not at the asteroid, but at the pattern on its surface now. The traces of their movement, the lines of contact, the crater, now catalogued, the mineral, now logged, the dream, now a little more real. It is easy to forget how small these machines are, just meters long, some even less. Yet they carry the ambitions of a species that has always looked up and asked, what if? They are, in their own way, storytellers, telling not of kings or wars, but of rocks and orbits and silence, of what it means to build before we arrive. You drift back now, giving them space. They do not need your presence. Their work will continue, unseen but not unnoticed. And just as you begin to turn away, one last movement catches your eye. A new probe has landed, not crawling, but gliding, shaped like a petal. Powered by light, it begins to unfold. Out here, there is no ground, only motion, no down, no up, just drift. And in this floating realm, where every gesture becomes a consequence, you begin to understand a fundamental truth. To touch something in space is to risk being thrown from it. You slow your thoughts, softening them until they match the rhythm of a hovering probe. You observe not with urgency, but with reverence as a machine approaches a rock that spins lazily through the dark. The asteroid is small, maybe the size of a bus, maybe a city block. It has no atmosphere, no resistance, no welcome, and yet the machine still dares to reach for it. Not with violence, not with speed, but with studied calm. A robotic arm extends, not fast, not careless. It inches forward, like a breath held too long. Sensors lead the way, tiny instruments pulsing data back to the machine's quiet core. They read everything: distance, temperature, resistance, reflectivity. They feel the faintest echo of a magnetic field, the gentle pulse of solar interference. and still the arm extends. Its fingers, their metallic equivalents, spread open with the softness of a petal responding to light. They are not made to grab, but to cradle, not to dominate, but to hold. You float alongside, watching. You understand now that this is not just a maneuver, it is a lesson. How do you touch what floats, without becoming adrift yourself? On Earth, touch is anchored. You can lean into a handshake, you can brace for contact. But in space, every action creates an equal reaction. If you press forward without care, you will tumble backward into nothing. That is why precision matters more than strength. The robotic miner adjusts its grip angle, microthrusters his softly, invisible jets, keeping the craft steady. Its legs brace against the asteroid's surface, not to stand but to resist recoil. It is like watching someone attempt to land on a cloud. Contact. The fingertips graze the surface. Just a graze, enough for the sensors to read the composition. Loosely packed regolith, a top layer of dust barely held by gravity's whisper. Too much pressure, and the dust will plume outward, obscuring vision and disturbing measurements. Too little, and nothing will register. This is a dance of micronewtons, a ballet measured in decimal places. You watch the robotic arm adapt. It retracts, recalibrates, and reaches again. This time, it lingers just long enough to press a small tool into the dust, creating a shallow impression. There it is, a crater, no larger than a coin, made not in conquest, but in conversation. And then, from a second limb, a soft lens descends. It scans the impression in detail, 3D mapping every ridge and ripple, learning the texture of alien stone. What's remarkable is not the contact itself, but the learning. The algorithms running within this machine are not static, they evolve. Each texture, each micro-response is compared with thousands of simulations. The machine adapts its approach in real time, rewriting how it moves, how it holds, how it touches. You begin to see the beauty in this quiet choreography. This is not just engineering, it is patience made mechanical, curiosity wrapped in titanium, a longing for knowledge with arms. You remember the old saying, measure twice, cut once. In space, you must measure 1,000 times before you dare touch at all. A sudden ripple passes through your awareness. A second machine arrives, not to replace the first, but to assist. Its body is lighter, designed for agility. It hovers above, scanning the surrounding landscape. A deep crater stretches nearby, its edges irregular, its shadow long. The new drone projects a mesh overlay across the terrain. Algorithms begin to trace optimal paths for future landings, safer drill sites, steadier footholds. The map is not flat, it is living. With each movement, new data folds in angle of slope, grain adhesion, light reflection. What emerges is not a photograph, but a feeling, a digital intuition of the asteroid's shape and temperament. The robotic arm pauses again, as if listening. Then, guided by the map and the whisper of past movements, it extends once more, not to touch, but to tap. A gentle percussion, like reading Braille across the face of time. This is how we learn to touch the untouchable, not by rushing, not by demanding, but by listening with motion. The machines do not feel in the way you do, but they interpret, they respond, and in those responses lies a new kind of understanding, one not bound by nerves or emotion, but just as profound. You begin to see the parallels. To connect in space is to unlearn force and embrace balance. To explore is to yield as often as to reach. To discover is to pause more often than to act. You imagine your own hands reaching out in Earth's gravity, how they expect resistance, expect the familiar weight of touch, and you wonder, could you relearn touch the way these machines have? Could you untrain the instinct to grasp, and instead learn to float, to hover, to feel? Perhaps this is what space demands of us, not just new tools, but new metaphors, not handshakes, but glances, not grabs, but gestures. And perhaps the machines, these careful learners, are our teachers. One probe now begins to stow its tools. The task is complete, not extraction, but exploration. No rocks have been stolen, no dust disturbed beyond repair. What has been gained is invisible: understanding, calibration, progress. You watch as it retreats, its limbs folding like prayer hands. The map it made remains a shimmering outline, superimposed on the stone, guiding the next to come. And there will be others, for every asteroid holds different truths. Some are loose rubble piles that shift like breath, others are iron monoliths with surfaces too hard to penetrate. Each one must be met anew, each one teaches its own vocabulary of motion and restraint. Learning to touch in space is an eternal rehearsal. There is no mastery, only presence. You drift further back, watching the scene grow smaller, and yet the lesson lingers. It echoes inside you, as softly as the machines touch the stone. How do you approach a thing so different from yourself, without losing your own balance? Tick, tick, tick. The sound is not loud, not a clock in a room, not even a clock in a tower. It is something older, something slower, the deep rhythmic pulse of celestial timing. Tonight, you feel it. Out in the quiet dark, you float with your thoughts slow and spiraling. The machines have paused. The rocks drift patiently, and somewhere behind the stillness, the invisible gears of the universe begin to turn. This is the chapter of timing, of waiting, of preparation, and of windows that do not open with a creak, but with a whisper. You hover above Earth now, far enough to see its curve. It spins beneath you, wrapped in cloud and light. But your gaze turns outward, toward a tiny dot moving through space, an asteroid, distant and fast. Yet for a moment, not too far, not too fast, just right. This is a launch window, a fleeting alignment between Earth and a celestial object, an opening in the corridors of space. For weeks, months, even years, the path between two bodies is crooked or costly. But then, for a breath of time, everything shifts. Gravity softens, trajectories flatten, distances become invitations. And when that moment comes, you must already be ready. You hear it now, not a ticking clock, but the tightening of systems, launch teams stirring, engines whispering, solar panels folding like insect wings, rockets standing like towers of held breath. Even the robotic miners, still asleep in their shells, begin to stir in their code. They do not know what day it is, but they feel the nearness of ignition. Their processors anticipate sky, their joints twitch in simulation. They too are preparing, because flight is not a decision, it is a rhythm, and timing is its heartbeat. On Earth, the launch pad waits, concrete drenched in heat scars, metal scaffolding shining with frost, hoses coiled like resting snakes. And above it all the rocket, thin, tall, silent. Not yet fire, not yet speed, just promise. You move closer now, through clouds and atmosphere, down toward the engines. Engineers check pressure valves, computers trace orbital paths. The math is relentless, every decimal matters. 1 second early, and the craft misses its corridor. 1 second late, and it chases a shadow instead of a target. And so the countdown begins, not loudly, but inside you. In a command room, voices lower, monitors blink, eyes sharpen. The robotic payload dreams behind its protective shell, not dreaming as you do, but rehearsing, calculating its own role in the journey to come. Far above, the asteroid continues its path. Indifferent, it does not know it is being approached. It simply moves, graceful, ancient. The Earth seems to pause, or perhaps it is you. The night around the launch site deepens, winds still, silence gathers. A spark within the engine chambers. Liquid fuel meets oxidizer, but not yet fire. Not yet. You breathe in, or maybe Earth does. All systems green. Alignment confirmed. The launch window opens like the petal of a flower that only blooms once in a decade. In that moment, all doubts go quiet. There is only direction, purpose, and readiness. The robotic miners are cradled tight. They wait not with anxiety, but with clarity. They were made for this. Built not just to fly, but to arrive. Ignition. Fire white and holy, bursts from the base. The rocket lifts not suddenly, but deliberately, as if reluctant to leave Earth. as if honoring the ground it's leaving behind. You rise with it. The roar is vast, but from your place above it is hushed, a deep wind through invisible canyons. You watch as the rocket cuts upward, shedding parts of itself like memory boosters falling away, fairings peeling off. What remains is lighter, faster, purer. Inside the nose cone, the payload sleeps no longer. The robotic miners awaken mid-flight. Diagnostics run, code streams, orientation adjusts. They feel the absence of gravity. They feel the pull of motion. And somewhere deep within their programming, they recognize the pattern. This is the moment they were made for. You drift beside the craft as it exits atmosphere. The sky goes black, the stars return, and still it climbs not with flailing wings, but with focused burn. Because to chase an asteroid is not to race, it is to join. The launch window is not a tunnel, it is a thread, woven between bodies in motion. The rocket follows it now, perfectly, not to collide with the asteroid, but to match it, to orbit, to land. And landing in space is not like falling. It is like waiting for the right note in a long quiet song. Days pass in silence, then weeks. The asteroid grows larger in the viewport, not looming, but arriving. The robotic miners stretch inside their compartments, joints flexing like dancers before the curtain lifts. They know the choreography now. They have rehearsed it 1,000 times in virtual dark. Soon they will land, soon they will touch, soon they will learn. But for now they wait, and you, floating beside them, come to understand the sacredness of this pause. The launch window opened. The rocket flew, and now the machines prepare to arrive. It is all movement, and yet it is also all patience, because in space to act too soon is to lose everything. But to act in time is to dance with the stars. You look back once more toward Earth. It is smaller now, still spinning, still blue, still full of clocks and noise. But up here in the space between ambition and arrival, time moves differently. It does not tick. It flows, like solar wind through your fingers, like thought, like faith. And now you feel it, the next pulse in the rhythm, the next movement in this silent sonata. A faint vibration runs through the craft. The descent sequence begins. Thrusters align, arms prepare, sensors open like eyes. Soon the machines will greet the asteroid, not as strangers, but as returning listeners. You are drifting now quietly, steadily on a ship without wind. There are no sails in the traditional sense, no engines that roar, only a whisper, a soft blue pulse behind you, pulsing with the rhythm of electrons. This is not speed as you know it. This is patience made propulsion. An iron drive sings behind your back. Its hum is not audible to the ear, but you feel it in your chest like a second heartbeat. Microscopic iron xenons, atoms charged into motion, are flung from the engine with silent precision. Each one tiny, each one invisible, but together they move you. Slowly, endlessly. It is not the kind of movement that pushes you against your seat. It is the kind that folds around you like gravity's lullaby. You don't fly, you drift with purpose. And in this space between departure and destination, time unravels like a ribbon. Outside the window, if there were windows, you would see stars holding still, the earth shrinking to a blue marble, and beyond that, vastness. But you are not lost. You are en route, and that means something. You are sailing through the liminal stretch of space between the gravity of home and the gravity of your calling. It is not empty. It is full of motion. Physics dancing with intention. Somewhere ahead lies the asteroid belt, a scattered kingdom of ancient stones. Your ship is not rushing to reach it. It is negotiating with the universe. Every thrust of ions is a conversation with inertia. Every pulse is a promise to keep going. Above you, solar panels unfold like wings of silver glass. They drink sunlight, and sunlight, so abundant on Earth, is precious out here. It arrives late, weakened, but still steady. These panels don't just power sensors. They guide your sail, for in this chapter of the journey, light itself becomes wind. You imagine the solar sail, if not on this craft, then on another, rising in slow motion, thin as thought, wide as a field. It doesn't billow, it doesn't flap, it shimmers, and as sunlight strikes it, photons bounce off like quiet applause, pushing the sail ever forward. No fuel, just light, just persistence. And in this light-borne motion, you learn that travel is not always about speed. Sometimes, it is about faith in forwardness. You think now of gravity assists, the slingshot dances we do with planets. To gain speed, we circle. To move forward, we sometimes must turn away. A spacecraft might loop around Earth, or Mars or Venus, not to visit, but to borrow. It leans into a planet's gravity well, and lets itself fall then, like a diver pushing off from stone. It escapes again faster than before. You marvel at the elegance of it. The universe offers boosts to those who wait, and so your journey unfolds not as a straight line, but as an arc of patience inside the ship. If you had a body here, it would be still. Tools would lie anchored with Velcro, screens would glow with data streams, cameras would blink, watching nothing become everything. The robotic miners, housed in foam and steel, continue their dreaming. Their code pings updates through silent circuits. Diagnostics hum. Flight paths adjust themselves through countless recalculations. They are not impatient. They are built to wait. And so are you, here in your imagination. You ride between two pulls now. The fading tug of Earth behind, and the quiet invitation of the asteroid belt ahead. Neither is strong, but both are real. You pass Mars at a distance, red rusted, resting in its orbit like an ancient ember. Its moons drift nearby, uneven and pockmarked. You feel their gravity reach for you, just briefly, then let go. The ship does not stop. There is no need to stop. Not yet, because this journey is not about detours. It is about direction. You look down metaphorically, spiritually, and realize you are not flying above a void. You are tracing a line carved in gravity. Everything that moves in space moves because it is falling. Even you. You are falling, slowly, gracefully, toward a point your engines help you chase. A soft descent stretched into flight. You think of ancient mariners who once watched stars and trusted wind. You are their echo. But your sea is black, your stars more numerous, and your wind is made of light and ions. Still, the principle is the same. You follow patterns, you surrender to motion, you aim for stones. In the distance, still days away, maybe weeks, your destination begins to shine, not like a star, not like a planet, but with shape, a rock, an asteroid. Floating, tumbling, waiting. Your miners feel it, even now. They do not celebrate, but their senses sharpen, their limbs prepare, their eyes begin to see, even before arrival. Because the space between launch and landing is not dead time. It is preparation, a stretch of silence filled with thought. And you, dreaming with them, feel yourself stretched too. This in-between place is not empty. It is where certainty is shaped. It is where risk becomes readiness, where the math of hope is tested against the vacuum. And you, now fully inside this chapter, find yourself breathing slower. Your pulse matches the iron thrust. Your mind mirrors the solar sail. Your thoughts drift between trajectories and faith. You are not lost. You are becoming. You are floating still, but the air, if there were air, feels dense with expectation. The journey has slowed. The asteroid now fills your frame of thought. It is not large, not beautiful. Its shape is strange, like a broken tooth, tumbling slowly in space's cold breath. Pitted and uneven, painted in charcoal greys and rusted browns, it turns not for you, not for the ship, but because it always has. And yet, it feels like it's waiting. You listen. There is no fanfare, no alarms, just data flowing like blood through a machine's veins. The landers wake, their joints hum softly, stretching like limbs after a long sleep. Inside their frames, gyroscopes adjust, sensors flicker to life, descent algorithms begin to loop like whispered mantras, stabilize, orient, approach, correct. A small hatch opens in the belly of the craft, then another, then another. 3 robotic miners emerge, one by one, suspended in the absence of gravity, cradled by motion. They do not leap, they do not fall, they drift, slowly, precisely toward the waiting surface of the asteroid, and you drift with them, breath matching their silent descent. The surface below is not solid in the way you know. It is loose, ancient regolith, a kind of powdered stone, formed not by wind or water, but by billions of years of collisions, dust from impact after impact. The asteroid is coated in memory. To land here is not to press down. It is to ask permission. The first robot lowers a set of articulated legs. At their ends, soft pads, designed not to sink too deep. Micro thrusters fire in gentle spurts, not to slow but to guide. Each burst is calculated. Every movement is an apology to momentum. The ground nears. You hold your breath. Even the robot seems to hesitate. Then contact. There is no sound, but in your mind you hear it. The faintest crunch, like snow under careful steps. The regolith compresses slightly. The foot settles. The machine pauses, absorbs the motion. No bounce, no slide. It has landed. Not with impact, but with presence. A second follows, gliding to a flatter patch near a crater's rim. Its foot slips slightly, an edge gives way, but the machine corrects. A tiny leg shifts. Its center of mass responds like a slow-motion dancer adjusting pose. Within seconds, it too has made peace with gravity's whisper. The third lands last. It doesn't aim for smoothness, it anchors to a jagged outcrop, magnetic clamps engaging with a soft click. You sense its limbs tighten, like an animal finding balance on a new branch, and then, silence. 3 landers, 3 perfect arrivals, not triumphant, but true. You drift closer now, seeing what they see. Beneath the dust, shimmering hints of iron, subtle streaks of olivine, glints of metal that has not seen sunlight in 4 billion years. Everything is still. Even the asteroid's spin feels slower now, as though acknowledging the guests. The first robot unfolds its arm, not a scoop, not a drill, just a sensor. It touches the ground again, not to alter, but to understand. Pressure, low. Density, mixed. Composition, ideal. The data pulses outward. The others begin their motions, rotating, drills extending, cameras blinking, but everything happens slowly, deliberately, because here violence means failure. A hard motion kicks up dust that can coat lenses, obscure solar panels, confuse depth sensors, so every touch must be as soft as thought. Every adjustment, like breath. You realize this is not mining, not yet, this is intimacy. Each robot begins to anchor itself now. One drives tiny harpoons into the soil, another inflates footpads, spreading pressure evenly across loose terrain. The third deploys a tail-like tether, wrapping itself gently around a stone protrusion for leverage, and you think this is how machines learn to stay. Not with force but with patience. One begins its core task. A small auger descends, not fast, just steady. It drills a shallow hole not to consume, but to taste. Rock dust spirals upward, caught by a cone, funneled into an analysis pod. The drill stops, the pod closes, data flows again. Chemical composition, grain size, temperature, electrostatic behavior. And somewhere on Earth, in a glowing control room, a small light turns green. Not celebration. Just confirmation. The stone has spoken, and we are listening. You listen too. There is something poetic in the way the robots rest. Their arms are extended in mid-task, their cameras scan, but their forms are still, like sculptures frozen mid-reverence. You feel it now. This is a ritual. The journey, the descent, the landing. It's all part of a cosmic choreography. These landers are not invaders. They are students. They do not take. They ask. And only after listening, do they begin their work. You imagine placing your hand into that dust. You would not feel warmth, but you might feel age. You might feel the slight resistance of a world untouched by weather or life. A world made of what was left over, not what was chosen. And in that stillness, your own movements would slow. You too would hesitate before stepping forward. The robots understand this. They have no fear, but they have rules. And those rules are born from physics, yes, but also from humility. The acknowledgement that even a machine must bow, sometimes before it begins. One robot now begins to store samples. Another begins to photograph its surroundings, building a 3D model of its landing site. The third activates its seismometer, listening not with ears, but with pressure plates, for tiny tremors in the rock. Even silence has stories. If you know how to listen, you begin to understand that success here is not loud. There is no planting of flags, no boasts, only data, only dust, only the knowledge that something has touched something else, and did not cause harm. That in space is a triumph. You float above them now, higher. The asteroid beneath you is no longer strange. It feels familiar. A landing site, a place of contact. It feels like a beginning. And as the robots continue their work, their joints lit by distant sunlight, you find yourself wondering, not what they'll find in the rock, but what they'll leave behind. Not footprints, but understanding. You are weightless again, this time not in open drift, but gently tethered to a quiet moment. Below you the asteroid spins with the slowness of ancient things. Its surface is still marked by the soft indentations of robotic feet, the gentle curves of recent craters, the subtle impressions of drills and probes. But nothing here has been broken, nothing scarred. This is not excavation, it is communion. The machines are working now, and their movements are graceful. You glide closer, watching one in action. It lowers an arm, a long, articulated limb that bends like a reed in wind and begins to hum. The sound is low, soft, less like machinery and more like music. The drill at its tip is not sharp like a weapon. It is designed to whisper into stone, to enter slowly, to listen as it turns. It spins now, just barely. The regolith beneath it resists, then yields. A small spiral of dust curls upward, caught immediately by a waiting funnel, collected, preserved, honored. The stardust that rises is not just material, it is history made visible. Bits of nickel and iron, grains of platinum, glimmers of cobalt and iridium, all spun into delicate threads of memory. You float beside it, entranced. The robot does not hurry. Each sample is gathered with intention. Each motion choreographed for precision, not speed. There is no tearing, no burning, no crumbling collapse, just this slow and sacred harvesting. You remember how mining once looked on Earth, vast machines tearing through mountains, rivers diverted, scars left in forests and valleys. But this is different. Here, every gram matters, every scoop is a prayer. The robots are restrained not by empathy, but by physics, by necessity, and perhaps by design. Out here, violence is wasteful. Dust takes hours to settle, damage lingers for millennia, and so the machines are careful. One moves to a new site, a ridge, just a meter higher. Its feet lift, hover, land. A new drill arm unfurls. Not the same design. This one is thinner, more delicate, built to sample surface material. Its tip glows faintly, heating just enough to release trapped volatiles without ignition. The machine waits, then collects the vapor, analyzes it, saves it, not for consumption, for knowledge. Another robot nearby is refining as it gathers. You marvel at this, the in situ resource utilization module spinning quietly on its back. It separates dust by mass, sifting heavier metals from lighter silicates. A tiny centrifuge hums. It is like watching alchemy performed by candlelight. You imagine the metals falling into tiny compartments, one by one, microscopic payloads of iron, manganese, ruthenium, not for their size, but for their promise. These are not treasures, they are tools, possibilities in powdered form, and still the machines remain silent. No drilling fluid, no smoke, only light pressure and soft hums. You begin to feel drowse-lulled, not by inactivity, but by rhythm. The asteroid turns again beneath you, and so do the robots. You drift alongside them, watching as their arms continue to sweep, collect, refine. Each movement is purposeful, each interaction slow, The energy that powers them comes from above, sunlight stretched thin across the void, captured by wide, mirror-like sails, and fed through quiet circuitry. Nothing is wasted. Even the heat of drills is repurposed to warm sensors. Even the dust that clings to joints is measured before it's brushed away. You smile. This isn't just mining. This is ceremony. The asteroid offers, the machines accept. And you, quiet observer, witness. One robot finishes a collection cycle. It pauses, rotates slightly, and deposits its tiny cache into a return capsule the size of your hand. The capsule seals with a gentle click. You imagine it stored deep inside a chamber, swaddled against vibration and cosmic rays. It will be sent back someday. Not soon, but someday. And someone, Earth or the Moon or Mars, will open that capsule and find not just metal, but stardust. Not raw, but remembered. They will run their fingers over dust that has never known sky, never touched rain, never felt the heat of fire. And in that moment, the story of this asteroid will change. It will no longer be just a rock in space. It will be a part of us. You drift higher, looking down at the three robots now forming a triangle of gentle labor. Their positions shift every few hours, avoiding the shadow of a crater, angling solar panels for better absorption, adjusting limbs as if stretching between breaths. Their patience is humbling. They do not complain. They do not tire. They continue not endlessly, but as long as needed. And what they leave behind is not ruin. The craters they dig are shallow. The samples they take, small. The dust they disturb, returned. It is not perfection, but it is a beginning. You feel the resonance of this chapter in your bones. In a world that often takes more than it gives, this feels different. This feels right. This is not extraction. It is conversation. The asteroid turns. The robots respond. The dust shifts. The drills sing. And somewhere inside you, something relaxes. A tension you didn't know you carried about need, about greed, about the future. It softens here, because here, need is met with mindfulness. Greed has no foothold, and the future is shaped, one grain of stardust at a time. Last lines, as one tiny capsule is sealed and tucked away, you feel a new vibration hum through the ship's frame, a signal from deep space, growing steadily louder, not from the asteroid, but from something moving toward it. There is a hush in the machinery now. Not silence, but a kind of reverence. The drills have slowed, the limbs have folded, the asteroid continues its slow tumble in the dark, but the work for now is done, and so begins the return. You watch as one of the robots turns toward the sky. If sky can be called the direction of Earth, its body glints softly in starlight, no longer busy, but still deeply present. On its back, secured and sealed, rests a capsule no larger than a bread loaf. Inside, dust, stone, trace metals, but also information. History, hope. The robot shifts its weight slightly, angles its antenna, and sends a single brief pulse across space. That whisper travels, summoning a return vehicle already drifting near. It arrives slowly, like a thought gathering clarity, sleek, white, quiet, no wings. No fanfare, just a receiver, a carrier, a shepherd for what the asteroid has released. The capsule clicks free. A small arm lifts it, careful even in vacuum. It is passed not like a tool, but like a secret. Gently the sample is drawn into the return vessel, nested in insulation and memory. And then, a breath, a pause, a long stillness. As if the machines, the asteroid and you, are all remembering something at once. Then, ignition, not a roar, just a puff of gas, a soft hiss like breath on glass. The return pod detaches and begins its journey home. You follow. At first it is nothing more than a dot against the stars, but you know its trajectory has been calculated to the decimal. It is not aimless. It is guided not by a pilot, but by physics. Solar wind nudges. Gravity assists arc it inward, tiny thrusters whisper corrections, and behind it, the asteroid shrinks again into the dark. It doesn't mourn the loss. It still holds stories. It knows you'll return. But now your gaze turns forward toward the long, gentle glide through space. Weeks pass in quiet. The capsule turns slowly, soaking light, protecting its precious cargo from heat and radiation. Inside, everything is still. Dust rests, metal cools. The container sleeps, but on Earth others begin to stir. In labs and mission rooms, on rooftops with radar arrays, eyes are scanning the sky. The capsule is not yet visible, but its return has already begun to shape plans. Landing protocols are rehearsed, chutes are checked, gloves are laid out with quiet precision, and somewhere a team of scientists dreams of what they'll find. Not just atoms, not just minerals, but origin, evidence of how planets formed, clues to the water that once rode comets to Earth, hints of life's chemistry, written in grains smaller than a tear. The return capsule nears the Earth-Moon system. You drift beside it, watching blue begin to bloom in the distance. Earth still wrapped in cloud, still glowing with motion, still calling you home. You think about the journey, the precision of the launch, the patience of the crews, the grace of the landing, the care of the harvesting. All of it for this. For a capsule that holds less than a kilogram of dust, and yet you feel its weight. Not physical, but intellectual, emotional, symbolic. It carries questions and the hope for answers. The capsule hits Earth's upper atmosphere, like a thought entering memory. Friction wraps around it, heat blooms, plasma trails, but inside everything is calm, designed to survive the storm of return. Shielded, focused, at just the right moment, parachutes deploy unfurling with slow confidence. The capsule slows, floats, descends. You drift downward with it, through the layers of air. The sounds return, wind flutter, the soft tension of fabric holding breath. Below, desert, chosen for its stillness, for its openness, for its ability to receive. The capsule touches down not with impact, but with grace. A slight bounce, a settling, then quiet again. Recovery teams approach. They do not rush. They kneel beside it, like one might kneel at an altar. They lift it gently into waiting arms, and just like that, the journey ends. But the work begins. You watch through imagined walls, as the capsule is carried into clean rooms, past layers of containment, through corridors lit in cool white. Inside the final chamber, gloves slide into sealed ports. A scientist leans forward, not touching, but feeling. The lid is opened, and there it is. The dust, the metal, the message from the sky. Tweezers lift a fragment sharp-edged, no bigger than a fingernail. Under the microscope, its structure is strange and beautiful. Crystalline lattices, shaped in zero gravity. Traces of elements not commonly found on Earth's surface. Pores filled with ancient solar particles. The scientist smiles. It is more than they hoped, and you still floating in the memory of descent smile too. Because now you understand what was truly returned. Not just resource, not just rock, but perspective. A reminder of how small we are, how connected, how ancient, and how far we're willing to go, just to hold a little piece of the sky in our hands. There is no countdown now. No launch, no landing, no hum of returning capsules, just quiet. And a question, not sharp, not urgent, but gentle like the glow of a distant satellite blinking in the dark. A question that does not expect to be solved tonight. You lie back into your thoughts, wrapped in silence and soft breath. The journey has been long. Asteroids approached, dust gathered, dreams returned, but space has not closed. If anything, it has opened wider. Now that we've learned to land softly, to touch gently, to mine respectfully what comes next. You picture a future not in explosions or flags, but in repetition, in rhythm, in systems that wake on their own, stretching solar panels toward the sun without command. In fleets of robotic miners, fanning out through the asteroid belt, not in conquest, but in cooperation. The work becomes routine, predictable, precise. Asteroids are no longer destinations, they are waypoints, resources, refueling stations carved from memory. And with that routine, Earth begins to breathe differently. Imagine a city powered not by coal but by metals, once buried in silent stone beyond Mars. A satellite built from recycled stardust. A habitat on the moon supported by resources, harvested not with dynamite but with patience. Earth no longer bears every burden, mountains are left unscarred, rivers run clearer, not because we've solved everything, but because we've learned to stretch our reach upward, not just inward. In this vision, the air feels lighter, because the weight of need is balanced by possibility. You imagine classrooms where students trace asteroid paths, not as science fiction, but as navigation. You imagine farmers using tools made from metals that once floated in space, not because they are exotic, but because they are common, because routine changes everything. What once was miraculous becomes background. What once was frontier becomes infrastructure. You wonder when space mining becomes ordinary, what becomes extraordinary. Perhaps the answer is not in the materials but in the meaning. Because if we can gather resources without scarring the land, if we can build without burning, if we can listen to the rhythm of gravity, instead of forcing it to yield, then we become not just better engineers, but better stewards of Earth, of space, of one another. And yet not all stories go forward in straight lines. Not every future is gentle. There will be mistakes. There will be greed. There will be moments when ambition forgets humility. But if the foundation is made of rhythm, not rupture, then there is hope. You think of the miners, not the humans, but the machines. Their arms folded now, their drills cooled, their code resting, and you imagine them waking again, not once but many times, over decades, centuries, each one revisiting new stones, new orbits, new questions. Their memory is long, longer than ours, because machines remember everything, and in that memory perhaps lies our legacy, not flags, not ruins, but balance. You drift farther now, away from any single asteroid, above the belt, above the planetary plane. You see Earth not from the perspective of departure, but from return. It is glowing. Blue, yes, but more than that. It pulses, its lights flicker in soft heartbeat, its clouds swirl like breath, and around it in silent motion a ring of satellites, stations, ships and signals. A human-made halo. You imagine families living in orbit, scientists in rotating labs, children waking to see Earth rise from lunar windows, and somewhere quiet and small a return capsule enters atmosphere again, carrying not gold but knowledge. Because what space offers us, beyond materials, beyond motion, is meaning. Meaning born of distance, of perspective, of seeing the fragility of Earth against the permanence of stars, and that view may be the most valuable resource of all. You begin to feel it now. The future is not built all at once. It is built like stardust settles grain by grain, quiet, deliberate. A ship lands on an asteroid. A lab opens its capsule. A child hears the story of it all. That is how the new world forms, not in explosions, but in retellings. You take one last glance at the asteroid belt, that quiet drifting archive, and you feel no urgency to return, because it will be there, spinning, waiting, offering. It has waited billions of years already. It will wait billions more. We are not late. We are only just learning how to ask the right questions. And tonight you let the last one linger like breath on a mirror. What happens when the miraculous becomes mundane? What do we choose to do next? You don't answer. You don't need to. Because tonight's chapter isn't about decisions. It's about drifting into a dream, where possibility feels weightless, where future is not a race, but a rhythm, and you floating just above the clouds are part of it. A speck of stardust resting before rising again.